Joseph of Arimathea, a figure of considerable importance at a crucial moment in the Gospel accounts. Although he does not feature prominently during Jesus' ministry, his actions following Jesus' death stand out as both courageous and devout, shedding light on the dignity he showed toward Jesus at a time when most of the disciples were in grief and confusion. Understanding how Jehovah's Witnesses view this man involves examining the scriptural record closely, noting the qualities he displayed, and appreciating the prophetic significance of his actions. From the Gospels, we learn that Joseph of Arimathea was a respected member of the Jewish Sanhedrin, the high court that held religious authority in first-century Jewish society. According to the accounts in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Joseph is described as a rich man and a good and righteous individual who was waiting for the kingdom of God. Jehovah's Witnesses draw attention to the fact that Joseph's moral character stood in marked contrast to many other religious leaders of his time. While many members of the Sanhedrin were openly hostile to Jesus, plotting his death and pressing Pilate to execute him, Joseph of Arimathea did not support their decision. In fact, Luke chapter 23 verse 51 states that Joseph had not consented to their scheme. He was therefore someone who recognized the inherent value and truth in Jesus' message, or at least did not share in the council's rampant jealousy and injustice. What is perhaps most significant, and what Jehovah's Witnesses often highlight, is Joseph's role in ensuring that Jesus received a dignified burial. After Jesus' death, the scriptures record that Joseph approached Pontius Pilate and requested permission to take Jesus' body. In the cultural and religious climate of the time, this was not a trivial request. Jesus had been executed as a criminal, and associating oneself with him at that critical juncture could have led to ridicule, loss of reputation, or even danger from powerful religious figures. Yet Joseph's courage in the face of potential repercussion is something Jehovah's Witnesses respect and emphasize. By requesting the body, Joseph showed moral backbone and love for Jesus, ensuring that the Son of God would not be dumped into a common grave, something that was often done with executed criminals. Moreover, the Gospel of John adds that Joseph was joined by Nicodemus, another member of the Jewish ruling class who also approached Jesus respectfully earlier in his ministry. The two men brought myrrh, aloes, and linen cloths to prepare the body according to Jewish custom. Significantly, Joseph laid Jesus in a new tomb that he himself had intended for personal or family use, an expensive, rock-cut tomb that a man of lesser means could likely not afford. This was an act of substantial generosity and reverence. Jehovah's Witnesses may note that Isaiah's prophecy, Isaiah chapter 53 verse 9, foretold that the Messiah would be assigned a grave with the wicked but would actually be buried with the rich. Joseph's provision of his own new tomb is seen as a direct fulfillment of that prophecy. By pointing readers to these details, witness publications help readers see how the Bible's prophecies fit together and how even what might seem like minor details in the burial process carry weighty significance. Another factor Jehovah's Witnesses underscore is Joseph's state of mind and spiritual outlook. The Gospels describe him as someone who was waiting for the kingdom of God, Mark chapter 15 verse 43, Luke chapter 23 verse 51. Witness literature often explains that this expression suggests Joseph was in anticipation of the messianic rulership promised throughout the Hebrew Scriptures. While the Gospels do not say he fully understood Jesus' identity as the promised Messiah or that he comprehended the scope of the coming kingdom, Joseph's respect and desire for God's rule stood in contrast to the ambition and political maneuvering of many of his contemporaries. His decision to give Jesus a proper burial was more than a simple kindness. It was likely motivated by a deep reverence for God's arrangements and a reluctance to let a righteous teacher be dishonored even in death. Jehovah's Witnesses also point out that Joseph's actions would have provided a known, secure location for Jesus' tomb. The Gospels emphasize that this tomb was cut in rock and that no one had yet been placed in it. Joseph's involvement effectively means that the burial site was known to friends and foes alike, an important detail when considering the accounts of Jesus' resurrection. Because Joseph, a prominent man, had allowed Jesus to be placed in his unused family tomb, there was no confusion about the location. The authorities could not credibly claim the disciples had stolen the body from an unknown or common mass grave. Instead, the empty tomb stood as a clear, verifiable sign when Jesus was raised from the dead. Jehovah's Witnesses highlight such details as evidence for the authenticity of the resurrection accounts. No minor figure's tomb would provide such a publicly known landmark. In their publications, Jehovah's Witnesses may also draw lessons from Joseph's example. First, there is his courage. In a moment when Jesus' closest disciples were fearful or scattered, Joseph stepped forward. He was not one of the 12, but he took a practical, generous step that advanced the fulfillment of prophecy and honored Jesus' memory. This teaches modern readers about the value of doing the right thing, even if it is not the popular or easy choice. Second, Joseph's respectful handling of Jesus' body reminds believers of the importance of treating sacred matters, indeed all aspects of worship, with dignity and care. He provided the best he had, a testimony to his sincerity and devotion. Please share and like and please subscribe.